issues center around city finances, schools, public safety, and economic development. Can anyone give Mayor Emanuel a run for his money? Here to talk about his campaign and where he stands on the issues is one of the 5 candidates on the ballot for Mayor of Chicago, William Doc Walz. And William Doc Walz, thank you for joining us in Chicago tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here, sir.
You've run for Congress, City Clerk, and Governor, and this is your 3rd time running for mayor. Why are you running again?
I'm running for mayor of the city of Chicago because I have solutions to the problem and I have a completely different perspective than the other candidates. I want to solve Chicago's problems once and for all, and we have plans to do that.
You, before we went on camera, you were telling me that you were not planning to run for mayor. Why were you not planning to run at one point?
I had no intentions of running for mayor a 3rd time. I thought that I was done. I thought that I would find a candidate that I could back who could bring Chicago back to its resiliency. But I was unable to find anybody that I was willing to believe in.
You've also said that you, quote, don't like politics, and yet you've run for all these offices. How does one run for all these offices and not like the political scene?
Because I'm a political activist, and my political activism says that you have to fight to make a difference every minute of every day. Dr. Martin Luther King, on a day like today, his birthday, would be working, and that's what you do. It's so easy to give up, but it's so much more difficult to fight for those things that are right. And as long as we have children dying in the streets, as long as we have people closing schools and nobody's able to do anything about it, I'm going to fight.
A recent report called you a, quote, perennial candidate. How do you assess the viability of your candidacy?
I look at a guy like Mitt Romney, who's running for president for the 3rd time, and people are celebrating Mitt Romney's 3rd run for president of the United States of America. But, you know, white media is quick to label black men. It's a blackout of black men in white media. I was with a prominent attorney yesterday, and he talked about how he was one of the top 10 attorneys in the country, but nobody ever talks about him. Nobody ever talked about Jesse White during the last election, except for one of the tumblers, unfortunately, God rest his soul, got killed. White media doesn't treat black men fairly.
What do you offer that the other progressive opponents to the mayor do not offer? Because all of you are describing yourselves as progressives. The 4 of you, that is.
Big ticket things. For example, Chicago has a debt problem. We have a debt of $900 million. We have an $8.9 billion budget, but our debt is $900 million. That's the money that we have to pay to bankers for money that we borrow for our revenue bonds, our municipal bonds, our general obligation bonds. None of the other candidates talks about how do we transition Chicago from a debt-to-fund services revenue and expenditure system into a pay-as-you-go revenue and expenditure system. We have a plan to do just that.
As you look at the as one looks at the political field, does one run the danger of dividing the progressive vote if there's an incumbent who's well-funded, who's has been down this road before successfully, and 4 challengers, all of whom say, you know what, I mean, you just now attempted to distinguish yourself from the 3 other, quote, progressive candidates, but if there is a progressive sort of movement in the city, are the 4 of you not splitting that?
No, there's no such thing as splitting the vote anymore. The winner has to get 50% plus 1. And as long as, as long as the challengers cumulatively get more than 50% of the vote, there's going to be a runoff. And at that point in time, you have a one-on-one election. And Ron isn't guaranteed a spot in the runoff. He has to earn his just like everybody else.
You mentioned big picture items like the budget. What other themes are you are you promoting in your campaign?
Certainly economic development. We have to move away from beautification of the city of Chicago to economic development. We have 2 strong economic development programs. The city of Chicago has food deserts. 22 of the 77 communities are food deserts. And nobody has a solution to address that but me. We have an initiative called Grocers, community owned and operated. It's a $600 million initiative that's paid for by TIF funds to create 60 medium-sized grocery stores and 20 big box grocery stores in those areas that are food deserts.
One of the things that any candidate who's promising programs and so forth has to do with the whole notion of funding. You say you would use TIF money for this, but you're an opponent of TIFs, are you not?
I'm an opponent of TIFs if they're not used properly. I believe that you use them in blighted areas for housing, for economic development, and certainly for things like infrastructure improvement in depressed areas, things that create tax revenue in those areas.
How about public safety? What's the main issue, what's the main theme of your public safety platform?
We'll have an intensive care program for public safety. We'll call for a state of emergency. And that means that we take those police officers who are on desk duty, put them out on the street, replace them with clerks. We will take those police officers and put them around our parks, our schools, our libraries, economic centers, because where there's presence, there's deterrent. We'll have outdoor roll calls. We'll have those recruits who are in training out on the streets. We'll make certain that we don't have police officers writing tickets for simple things like parking tickets or languishing in court all day long to prosecute a broken tail light. We want them out on the street serving people, getting to know people.
Regarding education, you're on record as criticizing the mayor for having closed the 50 schools. One of the things you want to do, which I think is raising people's eyebrows, is you want the study of the Bible in public schools. Elaborate on that.
Certainly. The Bible is the foundation for Western civilization. Our dollar says, "In God we trust." We want our children to know exactly why it says that. The Supreme Court has said that it's legal. The Constitution says that it's legal to teach the Bible, not preach the Bible in schools. It's done in school districts all across the country.
So there are parameters that involved it being a non-secular context and the study of religion, not the promotion of religion, according to your website.
Absolutely.
That's the position you take.
Additionally, we teach Greek mythology. We teach Egyptian hieroglyphics. So it's not foreign to us to study religion in schools.
Last question for you. The mayor has raised more than $11 million. Most of your funds, according to public reports, come from $30,000, $25,000 of which you loan to your own campaign. How do you assess your ability to get your message out?
Well, Blair Hull spent $48 million trying to beat Barack Obama. Barack Obama spent a whole lot less. When you have a good, powerful message, it resonates with people. And we find our message does resonate with people.